I've gone on record before saying that Makoto Nijima is not my favorite character. In fact, I dare say that she was, for the longest time, maybe my second least favorite character. And that was before I dated Haru Okumura. But in my most recent playthrough of Persona 5, I dated Haru. So that means... well, I started to think about why it was that I didn't really care for Makoto Nijima. And I got to thinking about her character and how it kind of reminded me of myself when I was younger. Now, to be completely honest, I know dumb. I'm the Ryuji video guy. I literally made a whole segment talking about how Ryuji deserves better than he got, and at no point did I ever say that Ryuji wasn't stupid. Because he's stupid. He doesn't pay attention in class, he's not educated, but that's not what he's good at. That's not what he's made his niche. Makoto, on the other hand, is rated the highest as far as the Phantom Thieves go on ranking polls, and I think that says a lot. On that note, this isn't even just about all of the worst possible times she's portrayed her naivety and her lacking social awareness. If we really want to see how quickly she breaks down in a situation that requires her to understand her peers, let's look at her and Yusuke's interactions with Futaba. Right from the start, Yusuke is placed in the scene, as he always is, as a set piece to be strange and weird, the usual eccentric art guy who's just along for the ride and makes occasional quips. Makoto, on the other hand, claims that she'll be making most of the efforts in helping Futaba out of her shell. She promptly breaks down as all of her questions and icebreakers are thrown back against her as she gleans no useful information from the girl. For the first time, viewers, this scene is written to give them the sense that Futaba is really as maladjusted as she seems in the previous arc. The problem with that idea is that the immediate next scene has Futaba socializing just fine with Ryuji and An, even going so far as to teasing the former with the latter. To make matters even worse is that in that same scene as with Makoto and Yusuke, Futaba goes from having a full-blown argument with Yusuke to finding relatively common ground and holding an actually really immersive and regular conversation far better with him than anything Makoto could come up with. I would argue then that the point of this scene isn't to show that Futaba is struggling to socialize at all, but to show that she's actually more equipped than she knows. It's Makoto who ends up getting overwhelmed and flounders trying to find some kind of foothold in new and uncertain terrain. She's the one who's the least sociable of the Phantom Thieves, not the other way around. In spite of her pragmatic approach to conversation, all she does is further alienate herself by trying to create more mature and versatile conversation topics instead of trying to attempt to find Futaba on her own footing and create conversations about things that are of mutual interest. It's truly not even Makoto's fault that she can't see past her own nose here. She was never raised to have a single interest in entertainment. Not only does she have low wisdom, but she's bordering on negative charisma as well. Just real quick, bear with me here. Let's run down a quick list of her most damning showings of dumbitude. 1. She talks herself cleanly into being blackmailed by her principal. The Phantom Thief hunt is forced upon her, and at no point until after Kaneshiro does she ever even remotely think of saying no, almost as if she can't even perceive of a world where she would ever need to say no to an adult who has a position of power over her, or that she could even have that kind of autonomy to herself. 2. She's never been in an arcade before and lacks the spatial awareness not to yell in public as she plays what can only be her first video game ever. After the fact, she isn't even aware of the scene she's made, just that she wants to continue her experiments in the foray of learning to be more like her peers elsewhere, most likely to make a scene there as well. 3. She blackmailed Joker and the Phantom Thieves, which could actually just be a learned behavior she literally just picked up from her principal days before, forcing them to take on the Kaneshiro case and rushing them when they didn't get the results that she wanted as fast as she wanted them. And 4. Putting herself and the Phantom Thieves all in very real mortal danger with Yakuza by getting herself kidnapped, entrapped, and blackmailed again by taking their word of needing to get to Kaneshiro to get further as literally and idiotically as possible. I mean, we all remember what happens if we fail to complete Kaneshiro's dungeon before the due date, right? Very uncomfortable scene. She seems to talk herself into all of her problems, really, but watching her through the game, can you really blame her? She is stunted, perhaps a little autistic, but she's a gifted kid. Saying that out loud stings. More than that, before she meets the PTs, she is the perfect cog for the machine that is Japan. Japan, where death is preferred to stagnation and laziness, and thus working to death is seen as commendable and honorable. In the country where work is pinnacle and you're only as good as what you offer to the team. She was molded not just to survive, but to thrive in that kind of environment. To put it bluntly, Makoto was groomed to be the perfect inclusion to the world of Japan's law and order. She was taught to be observant and organized. She learned that she needed to ask questions, but she wasn't taught the right questions to ask. She wasn't taught to think for herself so much as for the sake of the greater good of the law. She was taught that the law was infallible and that if she didn't fall in line, she would be punished severely like those who were punished by the law were. Honestly, it sounds less like I'm describing a high-intelligence, low-wisdom character than the perfect, lawful, good paladin that everybody thinks is the archetype for the class alignment matchup. The one who will turn in the party's rogue because he took candy from a baby. In layman's terms, she was taught black and white judgment, when the world is actually morally gray. After she joins the Phantom Thieves, she realizes just how stunted her growth was and how bad it has made her, and she takes great strides to fill in those cracks. She knows how much of a work in progress she is, but where she's focused on knowledge, she has lost in her humanity. Since I broke it down at the top in Dungeons & Dragons terms, I'll finish up returning to that point. Makoto has the wherewithal to be the Phantom Thieves' motor network. If Futaba's the brains, Makoto is the nervous system. She reacts, she plans, she watches and learns. She observes, and while this may seem like something like perception or insight, this is actually investigation. After all, she wants to be a cop, so it tracks that she would be a good detective. She can crack a puzzle and she can interrogate very well. Where she fails is general perception and reading between the lines. She gets defensive about Ryuji yelling at Futaba's shadow when, in that instance, her shadow is an antagonistic force trying to kill them, even if those attempts at their lives were against her own wishes. Makoto lacks perception, insight, and survival skills, which we see in how easily she is coerced by those in power above her or when she gets kidnapped. She doesn't know when she's being played. That is, not until she joins the party of the thieves. As soon as she sits down at the table, she's made aware just where her weaknesses lie, and Makoto Nijima is anything but weak. She immediately begins to shear up those rough edges, and she picks up a few new tricks, tries new things, but more importantly, she learns to stand up for herself and when she's being taken advantage of or talked down to. Or worse, when her friends are. A drop stat is a drop stat at the end of the day, but every couple levels you get to boost those stats. And by the end of the Phantom Thieves story, I'd say that Makoto's rounded herself out quite admirably. I still really don't think she breaks my top 5 as far as the Phantom Thieves go, but she's working at it. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. This is Beam, also known as Josh, also known as the only person who works on this channel anymore. I appreciate you making it to the end, and I would also appreciate it if you left a comment. I don't really mind if you like and subscribe, although that would be great, but I would love to see what you think about the video itself. This is a shorter video than the usual word soup, that's why I call it cup rambling, like cup ramen and, rambling. Less scripted stuff and more straight to the point and low maintenance. I tried to make that Eustace Kid video a cup rambling, it turned into a soup halfway through, because 22 minutes and all that work. yeah, that was not me rambling at that point. Anyway, hope you have a lovely day, and enjoy some of my other videos if you have the time.